Good evening, everyone. My name is Mr. Camacho. I'm the principal of Cesar Chavez Middle School. Welcome to Back to School Night. We are going to start in a few moments. I'm just making sure that all of my panelists are with me so that we can begin our presentation. Okay, we're waiting for a couple of our counselors to get in, as well as our family service assistant. So with that, while we try to get them in, let me go ahead and start. Share my screen. Well, once again, welcome to the Back to School Night. Tonight, it's going to be the administration, myself, the two APs, our counselors, and as well as some of our support staff as well too. With that, once again, Mr. Camacho, the principal, and then we also have Ms. Defai, who is our assistant principal for last names A through L, as well as Mrs. Zapata, who is our assistant principal for last names M through Z. With that, that's us. Well, they'll be popping up in a few moments and sharing more information with all of you. Then from there, we also have our counseling team, Ms. Venice Hardy, who is the counselor for last names A through G, Mr. Cruz, our counselor for last names H through O, and then Ms. Silva, who is our counselor for last names P through Z. So with that, counselors are going to jump in. Are we able to get everyone? I think we're scrambling right now because not everyone's in. Miss Hardy, can you start this up while I work on our counselors in? Thank you.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I'm Venice Hardy, and counselor for the last names A through last names G. And so just to tell you a little bit about the function of the counselors and the counseling department, we are there to give your students a safe and confidential place to kind of help them work through the ups and downs of middle school. Okay, we're there as they're developing socially and emotionally, academic support, because of course, for a lot of students, middle school is a big transition. And even the 8th graders who have been in middle school for a little bit, you know, given that we're all just returning to campus, there's a lot of transitions going on. And so we are there to support your students as they are encountering the new experiences and, you know, developing into young adults. And that includes circumstances outside of school, you know, issues that may be happening within the family, you know, they're suffering from loss, you know, maybe of family members, or anxiety triggered by different situations that arise in life. And we are a support on campus every day for them. We have been visiting the classrooms this week and making sure, just to introduce ourselves to the students and making sure they know who we are and who their particular counselor is. and when they can see us and how to see us, making sure that they know where the counseling center is located. And we let them know that there's a couple of ways to see us. One we encourage is for them to email us, since they are online quite a bit. And, we're looking at our emails all the time. So that's the quickest and most efficient way to contact us. But we also do have a way for them to essentially request an appointment. And so that's what we've been doing this week, is meeting your students. The areas that we support them, are many. Academically, of course, again, students are transitioning, and helping them to understand their own learning, and helping them learn to communicate with their teachers and advocate for themselves, and just generally how to communicate their needs and be able to speak up and advocate for themselves. Sometimes things are going on at home, and in middle school they're a little more grown up, so they do have some understanding of circumstances that are happening, but they are still children, and means that they don't have a lot of control over their environment sometimes, and they need a place to kind of debrief or voice their feelings. So we are there for that. And other concerns that can arise in school: behavioral things, social issues that come up, sometimes conflicts with friends or classmates, health concerns, which is something we're all dealing with right now, and also to connect you and them and you to resources in the community to provide support that maybe is beyond what we have at school. And so we are there for your students. We are also there for you as well. So as parents and guardians, please don't hesitate to reach out to us with just information about your student, maybe that would be helpful for us and teachers to know, concerns that you have, questions that you have. Please reach out, call us, email us, and we are there for you.
Hi, I'm Miss Silva. Back one slide, please. Back one more. One more. Nope, forward one. There we go. And so after all that Miss Hardy just presented, how do you get a hold of us? How do you reach us? How do your students reach us? So your students can come in and see us before school, at break, at lunch, or after school. Or if it's a crisis, they can definitely get a pass from a teacher and then come see us. But we do recommend that they check in with their teacher first, so that they don't get marked absent and that we all know where to locate the student. Students can also make an appointment with us by coming in and filling out a little yellow half sheet like this. It's a counselor appointment form. These are located in the counseling center. They can fill it out, put it in our box. When we have a minute, we'll call them out, or they can just email us. It's the easiest, most discreet way for them to request an appointment. Send us an email, first initial of our name, our last name, and then the same ending to the email as their own. If you want to email us as well, it's the same way. And then we can see your child or make an appointment with you if needed. Thank you.
Mrs. Camacho.
So Mr. Camacho, there we go. Mr. Camacho, Mrs. Camacho is trying to get in, but I think there's some technology issues. So I can begin her part of the presentation and then hopefully she'll be able to join us. So Mrs. Camacho is our family services assistant, and we are so grateful to have her because she provides all kinds of support for our families here. She also works at the Union City Family Center. And what services can she provide for our families? She works to help students with enrollment and attendance. She also supports students just to stay engaged in school. So if students are struggling just to be here and stay focused, she really works to support families and students around motivation and things like that. She also can provide students and families with support in terms of nutrition, health, food, economic and financial empowerment in terms of tax returns and budgeting. She can connect them to all sorts of resources that will support them in regards to that. She connects families and our students to outside services, including but not limited to the types of things that are listed in the last bullet point. So emergency housing, medical and mental health referrals, just medical services. So if families need help getting medical, she knows how to support families with all of that paperwork, childcare needs, etc.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Vivica Rojo. On the screen, it says Miss Rojo. I'm encouraging students to call me Miss Vivica. I'm this year's behavioral health provider. So I'm going to be supporting your students a lot with the wellness space that we're going to be opening up in September. It's going to be a space that students can come and hang out in, mainly during lunch. And I'll also be partnering with students' teachers to deliver different activities and lessons around diversity and social emotional learning. And then lastly, I will be working individually and with groups of students on emotional self-regulation strategies, peer relationships, so figuring out like how to manage conflicts with one another, communicate with each other, and just figure out who they are and yeah, navigate middle school. Thank you all.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mrs. Defy. I'm one of the assistant principals here at Cesar Chavez Middle School. And I'd just like to talk about a few COVID protocols that we've implemented at our site. We fall in line with the county and the CDC guidelines. And so one thing that we would like to remind everyone is to please review the COVID health screening questions every morning before coming to school. If the answer is yes to any of the questions on the questionnaire, please keep your child at home and contact the office to report the absence. And then we can have some consultation in terms of, when the student can return to school. We do require masks to be worn indoors on campus at all times, and we highly recommend students to continue wearing their masks when outdoors and not eating or drinking. We do have a flow chart in terms of, recommendations for if the student has symptoms, quarantine recommendations, and then also if there is some sort of exposure. And I think if Mr. Camacho would like to click on that very quickly, or we can just move to the next slide. So we definitely follow the county recommendations and also consult with our district nurse in terms of making sure that we are following those guidelines and we update them regularly. This flow chart was sent to families, and it basically outlines what the recommendations are if your child is symptomatic, if your child has been exposed, if there's an exposure. There are different pathways for students and families who are vaccinated and unvaccinated. I know that it can be rather confusing, but we are also here to answer any questions that you might have in terms of your student. So please feel free to contact the office and we can go through this in more detail. So moving forward, I know that this week there has been some notices that have come that have been sent, and so we just wanted to kind of highlight some of the information that is provided from there. So each time our school is notified of a positive case, we do conduct an investigation and notify all of the appropriate individuals. And so at that time, once the investigation is complete and the timelines have been set and identified, we do send out two different types of exposure notices. And the first one is a general exposure notice, which basically notifies the school community that there was a positive COVID case on campus, and that's a general exposure notice. And through our investigation, then we identify anyone who is a close contact for that particular individual. Close contact means if they were within 6 feet for a period of time of 15 minutes or more of somebody who has tested positive for COVID-19. From there are two different options. If the student is vaccinated, is fully vaccinated, and I would like to identify fully vaccinated, meaning that they've had both doses and it has been more than 2 weeks after the second dose. The student who has the close contact, who has been identified as the close contact, may come back to school provided they do not have any symptoms. They still should continue to monitor and check for symptoms for the next 10 to 14 days. If the student is not fully vaccinated at this time, students must quarantine for 10 days from the date of exposure, regardless of whether they have symptoms or a negative, regardless of whether they do not have symptoms or if they have a negative test result. And so we do our best to communicate those timelines to our families and identify those families of when they can return to school. So a few health reminders are, if your child or someone else in the household is sick, please keep your child at home and monitor symptoms. And then we do, quarantine for a period of time. Absences due to illnesses are excused, and there is free COVID testing available at the James Logan High School, Monday through Friday from 10 to 6:30 a.m. If a student is sick, they must be symptom-free for 24 hours without the assistance of medicine in order to return to school. And if your child has a medical condition that results in a COVID-like symptom, please get a note from the doctor so that we can note that in the health screen. And if your child is absent, please call the office to report their absent as soon as possible. Thank you, and I'd like to go ahead and hand this off to Ms. Zapata, who will talk about a few resources that are available to our school.
Really quick, Ms. Defy, also another health reminder is, and in case you mentioned this earlier, I just want to make sure we point it out, but if anyone in your household is sick with COVID, then your child does need to stay at home as well too. Anybody who's been exposed within the household, whether family or not, we do need to have you call in and check in with us so we can figure out whether or not when your student can return to school based off of the information that we have to, an interview that we have to conduct with you. So yeah, if anyone in the household has COVID, your children do need to stay home and not attend school, and most likely work as well too.
Thank you, Ms. Defy and Mr. Camacho. Before I continue with the last few slides, I just want to briefly introduce Ms. Camacho, Melissa Camacho, who is our Family Services Assistant. She was unable to present her slides earlier because of some technology issues. So Ms. Camacho, if you could just turn your camera on real fast so folks could see who you are, that would be great. Thank you so much. And then Mr. Cruz, I know you had some technology issues too. If you could just turn your camera on real fast. Mr. Cruz, who supports our students whose last names begin H through O. He is one of our 3 counselors. You already heard from 2 of them earlier. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Appreciate you. Okay, the next slide, how to get involved. There are many ways for our parents in our community and family members in our community to stay involved. We really believe in parent and family member partnership here. And so on this slide, you can see some of the ways in which you can get involved and partner with us. So the first bullet point talks about the school site council. Mr. Camacho, our principal, he leads the school site council. This group meets every month to talk about pressing issues, to develop and implement a budget, and to approve the school plan. So if you're interested in that, we always need parents to really help us look at the school and develop that school site plan. So please reach out to Mr. Camacho so we can get you involved in that way. Coffee with the principal is another way to be involved. That is less formal, but that is a great way to just give us feedback on the school, feedback on things that you want to bring to our attention, and then also to hear from us about what's happening on campus. The third bullet point is English, is the ELAC group, the English Language Advisory Committee. And so that is for families of students who speak more than one language. And so I'm in charge of that, and I'm desperately committed to supporting students who are bilingual or multilingual, and I very much need parents to partner with me on that. The first meeting is coming up. And then lastly, the PVC is a group of parent volunteers who we're so grateful for. And if you're interested in that, please check in with us and Mr. Straley, one of our activities directors, about that. Resources. So of course there is the school website, which is linked here. This entire presentation will be available to you later on. And then of course Parent Connect, which is a great resource for you where you can check your child's tardies, attendance, etc. And then Canvas, we really hope that you have been able to link up on Canvas. Canvas is a learning management system where basically you can see what your child's assignments are and get pertinent information about what your child is learning about. I'm hopeful that your child's teachers will be talking about Canvas at Back to School Night tonight. Please follow us on any social media platforms that you currently use, like Facebook, Instagram, etc. Important dates. So these are some dates that are coming up. We have started some of our fall sports, and so there are some games that are approaching. There are protocols in place in terms of folks attending that. And so if you're a parent of a student who is enrolled and engaged in some of those sports and you've already been sent those guidelines, masks are recommended while participating outdoors. Visitors and spectators will be limited, etc. As I mentioned previously, our first ELAC meeting is coming up. So please, if you are a parent of a student who is in the EL program, please look for that invitation to the first ELAC meeting. Second Coffee with the Principal meetings coming up. We do have a minimum day on the 16th of September. And I don't want to read all of those because you can read them yourself, and because the first back to school period is going to be starting soon. And I think we want to take a few questions in the Q&A. Thank you.
Okay, one of the Q&A questions says, is CCMS going to start COVID testing on this campus as well as Logan? Unfortunately, that's not going to be able to happen. We were initially told that that would be a possibility of occurring once a week on our campus as well as the other campuses. Unfortunately, I think National is absolutely bombarded at this time because they are supporting other school districts as well too. And so now that all schools are open, they have had to scale back. So initially they were saying any household member can also be tested, and now it's purely students and staff only that they are able to test, and everyone needs to go over to Logan High School to make that happen. How do parents register on Canvas? So you are able to do a follow as an observer. There is a link on the school website, our new school website. If you check out our newest newsletter, you'll be able to see, or even go to and just Google CCMS web. You'll be able to get to our website. We have an old one and now a current one, and that's where you'll be able to go ahead and get the directions to become an observer. And then there is another COVID exposure, and there was something that we were practicing called modified quarantine. And the truth is it's very difficult to follow and make sure that everyone has gotten tested. And so we have stepped away from that, and we will practice that when we have a relatively small exposure on campus. And the thing that makes it very difficult to keep on top of is when we get to like a PE class, and it's really, or a teacher has groups moving around, and it's really difficult to isolate and truthfully say like, hey, this student or this staff member was only near these specific students. And so that's why we've had to get a lot tighter with our safety protocols and go more towards quarantining versus allowing testing to occur and getting students back on campus. Unfortunately, signups for track and field are over. Flag football has not begun. That'll happen later on in the school year. The only sports that are going, or the sports that are going right now, are girls softball, as well as boys soccer and track and field. And then modified quarantine can be an option, but it just depends on how many students were exposed. And so I just ask that whatever letter that we send you via email are the directions that need to be followed, just based off of the numbers that we have and we know about. I do feel that we do have enough contact tracers. The APs and myself, unfortunately, have gotten very good at this. And so it's really just about, as soon as we're notified, within that day, we're getting out information. And the last notification that we had, I'll continue to go ahead and host a Zoom event that evening and explain what the details are, or at least what the process is. Do kids have the option on Zoom? Unfortunately, that we aren't ready for what we would call room and Zoom, where teachers can go ahead and Zoom while teaching at the same time. It's a very difficult thing to do, especially as teachers need to go ahead and circulate around class. And like what you see right with me right now, the camera is only going to be placed on one side, and as teachers move around, it's going to be pretty difficult to be able to have class instruction occur like what we're used to from last year. So we aren't there yet, unfortunately. All right. Well, families, thank you as always. Check out our newsletter and email us. Give us a call if you have questions and concerns, and we'd be more than happy to help out and answer as quickly as possible. Thank you, and go ahead and head to first period. And then for some of you, I know that we do have some vacancies for science and choir, and we are working very hard to try to fill those, but we have not done that yet. And so we are working on it, and we're being proactive, but it's the teacher shortage that's occurring nationally is absolutely impacting us. And so that's something that we are still working on. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.